We're doing something different again. Today, I'm talking about how we set up game modes, how we run wars, and where we're making mistakes from where I stand. Before we jump into the actual meat of this video, when you see this, I'll be in Pennsylvania for PA Survival Fest. That's where all that stuff is. It's packed up and ready to go over there. So, in thinking about what I want to talk about, I was talking to one of my fellow board members here in Louisiana for the Louisiana Blaster League, Jacob Lewis, and he brought up game modes and Nerf wars and how we approach them here and kind of the efforts that he and I primarily take to keep everyone included in events that are going on. So when designing and executing game modes for either a casual event or an official club event, there's some things we have to consider to ensure our best chances of success. And we have 5 primary points we look into. 1, that the rules of play are fairly easy to understand. 2, that the objective of the game mode is clear and simple. 3, players aren't actively hindered during play, barring being tagged. 4, it has some form of unique challenge that makes the game interesting. And 5, and most importantly, it has to be fun. I'm going to move through each one of those points, elaborate on them a little, and then I'll summarize at the end. So the general rules of play have to be easy to understand. The first thing about that is you need to have a cohesive club or organization rule set that people can find somewhere. On the internet, hard copies at events, through your Discords, your Facebooks, whatever. They need to be out there so that people can pull them up ahead of time, look over them, and know what they're getting into when they go to your event. The rule set that we in Louisiana follow is going to be different than the rule set that they follow at Panic in the Northwest, at Kane in the American Midwest, Cincinnati, I think it's Kane, yeah, Cincinnati area Nerf enthusiasts, or in the Maryland groups. Groups that occur in a single region should probably cooperate a little bit to get your rules fairly cohesive so that your guys are only having to alter 1 or 2 things, like meeting an FPS requirement or meeting a dart limit. 2, within that general rules are easy to understand. Between rounds, you need to have determined when you're dart sweeping, if you're moving barriers, and other major points of play, like changing out props and other eccentricities for the fight. Obviously, if you're playing Capture the Flag one round and you're not playing Capture the Flag the next round, you need to have somewhere to take those flags to and get them off the field to limit the confusion that there's an objective that people aren't interacting with anymore. 2, the objective of the game mode is both clear and simple. Take the time to refine the explanation of your game modes so that people can follow what exactly they're doing instead of having to repeat yourself over and over and over. Referring again to Capture the Flag, because it's a fairly simple concept that we've all played since we were kids, you have 2 flags. The flag must be taken from your opponent's base and returned to your base. The only variation on this tends to be, do you need to be holding your flag at your base location in order to capture the opponent's flag? The answer here locally is yes. Other places may have different rules, and it may increase the interest in your local club by changing that rule. So think about it. We have found it extraordinarily helpful to utilize whistles in play and have a clear codification of what whistles mean, or air horns, or whatever you use to start and stop play. A random voice starting, go, stop, doesn't work great, but a whistle is understood by everyone. For us, locally, 1 whistle means go, 2 whistles means pause, 3 whistles means play has expired for some reason. We use 2 whistles for injuries, serious breakage of equipment on the field, or if we're playing in our indoor facility and we don't know that there's going to be children wandering through without notice, 2 blasts of the whistle tells us to stop because there's a child where they're not supposed to be. Point 3 is players not being hindered during play, barring being tagged. We've had a lot of issues locally with bunkering, right? People hit that cover and they stay there for the entire game. It leads to a play type that isn't very interesting, and if you have some of each team bunkering and some of each team playing aggressively, games go to the time limit only because these two people and these two people have never made a play for each other or the objective, and the rest of their team has been eliminated. So we attempt to encourage game modes that have a need for aggressive play. We used to play a lot of a game called Kings or VIP, where one person acts as the spawn location. Locally, that just meant that that person didn't play the game. They hid under a table, behind cover, whatever, and the rest of their team ran back through them. We've tried several things to change that, but due to our issues with bunkering and that game mode, we're going to move to a destroyable spawn location mechanic we're conservatively calling Pylon right now, to see how that works out. This also means that we've had to think a lot about barrier placement and what we use as barriers, so that we don't have large barriers that 2 or 3 people can hide behind comfortably, and that you do need to be concerned about wherever you get in behind that barrier, you're still exposed from at least 2 directions. It just leads to better gameplay and games not going to a time limit. That said, locally all our games have a time limit, so at least we have some kind of stoppage mechanic. Point 4. A game mode with an objective should be a unique challenge or a unique objective, something that's interesting to people. So, obviously Capture the Flag, we've talked about it a couple of times. We play a lot of territory control, where you have 3 or more points that have to be flipped from a red team to a blue team. We use a marker that's kind of a L-shaped kind of construction of legs that will sit up with either a blue marker or a red marker standing upright. Again, Jacob Lewis, he made them. They're great. But I'm in the process of building those King of the Hill timers that came out from Game Mode Repository, and we're going to try those out in the next couple months, once I get back from Pennsylvania and have time to myself again. The other thing about unique challenge is you need to consider your player base. If you have a lot of guys who are really into competitive game modes and going all out, and very few people who are casual, you need to still have something for everyone, but you need to slant towards those hardcore guys, and vice versa if you have a lot more casual play. In terms of casual play versus hardcore play, we have a lot of casual players here. We have a lot of guys who, well, are not quite suited for sprinting the whole time, and people who are just in it to kind of have a good time or get a little exercise on the weekend. So we tend to slant towards modes that aren't elimination based. And what I mean by that is 315s. 315s is a fine game mode. Everyone plays it to some extent or another. But it does mean that people will get eliminated and have to sit out. We have people that once they sit out, they get bored, they don't want to play anymore. They're kind of done. That's not good for us. So we've tended towards more game modes that involve a constant play for everyone. Be it Capture the Flag with unlimited respawns, be it Territory Control with unlimited respawns. Obviously these are timed, they're like 5-minute rounds, they're nice and quick. Or something like an Attrition or Deathmatch style game mode. So for us, Attrition is a bucket of star-shaped stress balls, and if you have 5 people per team, you might have 18 or 20 of these star-shaped stress balls, and every time you die, you take a star out and you drop it on the ground. That's 1 life. This tends to lead to highly aggressive gameplay in the front half of the match, and more conservative gameplay as the match goes on and people realize that that star count is dwindling. Credit where credit's due. The first time I heard about a game mode like this was from Brandon Diaz on his YouTube channel. And I'll find a link to that video and put it down below for you. Finally, the most important thing with any game mode at any event is that it has to be fun for at least the bulk of your players. You're always going to end up with somebody who's like, oh, I freaking hate this game and I don't like playing this mode and why we got to play it every time? Well, the reason is you know, there's 12 people here and 11 of them like it. So cater to the 11 and find the mode that one guy wants, right? Be a competitive guy in the crowd of casuals. Play around a 315 so he can feel good about himself. Give him that. You want to let everyone participate and everyone be involved. But you also have to be quick about understanding feedback. regarding the location, the bunker placement, the nature of the game mode. We game tested a kind of variation on Medic last Indoor game. Didn't work at all. It was an absolute freaking nightmare. I've got footage from it that's basically unusable. And me and Jacob had to have a conversation that amounted to, hey, we can't play this. This doesn't work. We got to take this all the way back to the drawing board. But it might work at our normal indoor venue with our full set of barricades and all that kind of stuff. We don't know. So we're going to continue play testing it. What we have retired kind of semi-permanently is our Kings or VIP game mode. We played it a lot, but it led to bunkering, like I said earlier. And that bunkering meant that some people, like me, didn't have a whole lot of fun with it. Because I'd try to play more aggressively, I'd get out there, I'd be getting eliminations, trying to find the king. But when you're in a 5-man team, and you're the only one playing aggressively and figuring that out, it's just frustrating. So in closing, the 5 things to remember, again, are that the general rules of play are easy to understand. Whatever your rule set is, make sure it's easy to follow for whatever the lowest age range your event has to the highest age range your event has. They're not going to do you any good if people can't follow them, and you're just going to end up repeating yourself and getting frustrated. And that's no fun for you or your players. 2, make sure your objectives are clear and simple. Game modes that may look good on paper aren't going to work in the field because you're going to spend so much time trying to explain what you mean that people are going to get distracted and just resort to, well, I'm just going to shoot at people. And that means that they'll go to a time limit, you'll end up playing a deathmatch anyway, and that's no fun. Make sure the players aren't hindered during play by anything except the mechanics themselves. Being tagged, having to walk back to a spawn, whatever the case may be. Because again, they're going to get frustrated, you're going to get frustrated, and the game's going to be less fun for everyone. Make sure that whatever mechanics you put in add a unique challenge to the game. That's number 4. Building a fancy quote-unquote bomb that has to be diffused, and if not, it makes a bunch of loud noises and flashes a bunch of bright lights, is a neat idea, but what does it bring that just playing Capture the Flag doesn't? It's about flavor, and that flavor might be worth it for you, but make sure that it's worth it for the whole team and the whole club. And finally, number 5, most importantly above all, always have fun. The thing that we're losing in this hobby more and more, as more and more and more and more of these competitive tournaments come up, is people are only worried about the competitive side. Competitive is great, it's fun, but it might not be for everyone and it might not be for your club. So find the thing that is fun and is for your club. Now, if you have a club that has 15 guys who are all into competitive play, tell me where you are. I'd like to know more. But most of us are going to have maybe 5 to 10 guys who are into competitive, and that's if we have a really big club. So slant your game modes towards the casual. Mix it up with some more competitive stuff to keep those guys interested. And just find the thing that makes things work locally. Think local, act global, and let's, as a community, start working together to make our hobby more successful going into the next year and beyond. Thanks for watching. I know this is different, but I've been James, and this is the Talon Axe Armory.